Democrats struggling to find their footing and a winning message. DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, he's trying to inject some testosterone into the debate, bashing his own party for being too hostile toward men.
What we have to do here is figure out how to bring people back in and work towards the bigger goal of advancing the future of this country and helping young people especially get by so that they're able to focus on their lives and, getting with a young woman or something like that instead of how are they going to pay their rent, for example, or how are they working their two jobs. Young people should be able to focus on what young people should be focused on, which is how to get laid and how to go and have fun.
So, at the same time, this might alienate men. Jasmine Crockett is dividing her party by race and gender.
There's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you, it's not a black person nor woman.
Harold, tell us what you think about either David Hogg or Jasmine Crockett's accusations.
So, David Hogg is, I just turned 55. He's 25 years or 30 years older than me, younger than me. I don't know, maybe that's what maybe that's what he wants to do. But I think that Democrats need to be more focused on the issues that everyday people care about. Congresswoman Crockett has a theory of the case. I'm not sure it's the right one, but she has every right to have that theory. I think whichever candidate in the Democratic Party comes forward with a set of ideas and a set of solutions to people's everyday challenges, and even trying to work with the president where you can work with him and counter him with substance and a real substitute alternative, I think that's what will win. What I don't want to see is what we showed in our last segment. I don't want to see Democrats out fighting with ICE agents with no purpose, no reason for trying to get into a detention center, but to be in the detention center. If you have a plan that's different than the president's, offer it on taxes, on deportations, on health care, on Ukraine, on China, on terrorists, whatever the issue may be. All of the flummoxing at the mouth just doesn't do us any good. And more importantly, it doesn't do the people we want to represent any good either.
How about that David Hogg? Does he have his finger on the pulse of what the Democrats need for men?
The idea of, like he says, you need to inject more testosterone into the Democratic Party. You guys already have Randy Weingarten. I don't know what else you need. We need to do a segment called You Could Have Watched the Five.
Yeah.
Because we sounded the alarm on the Democratic man problem for years. It was becoming the party of the awfuls, the affluent white female liberals. That's a Michael Malice term. Stated clearly, men don't want to be in places where they aren't wanted. We get the hint. We'll go. It's actually the opposite of the radical female leftists. They want to be in places where they aren't wanted. They want to get in your face and scream and yell at you. And we're like, okay, we'll go somewhere else. See you later. You see that the overwhelming majority of protesters are angry women. Where is we just saw it was like the overwhelming majority of this last arrest. Is the anger really about the Jews on behalf of Hamas? Is it really about immigration on behalf of MS-13? The causes keep changing from climate to trans to Israel to immigration. So we know it's an obvious point, but nobody makes it. It's not about the issues. If these people are continually changing and shifting their anger to different issues, it's something underneath it. It's something that the Democrat Party has created a hole in their lives, and then the Democratic Party is promising to fill it with these causes, but they only last for a couple of months, and then they're empty again, and they're going like, where is my value in my life? This is what I think is the big problem here, and Dems don't like being around miserable, crazy women. I'm out of here, they say. Where are the Republican chicks? That's what he said. He said he wanted to get laid and have fun. He basically is saying he wants to look for a Republican.
Well, listen, young people should be getting laid and having fun.
That's so disgusting.
That's what middle-aged people are doing. Even the elderly, like you, Greg. That's all you're focused on.
It's true.
But he's trying to fool you with a vibe. And you have to align the action with the vibe. Action comes first, the vibe follows. Are masks sexy? No. Do you want to party with chicks on a yacht in the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico? It answers itself. These are the kind of things we're talking about here, people. Now, Jasmine Crockett, this is about basic math. The Democrats are batting 500 when they nominate a white man. They're batting 1,000 when they nominate a black man. What are they batting when they nominate a woman?
Where you're going here.
0. They're batting a 0 when they nominate a woman. Now, if I'm a donor, I have a lot of money, and I know how to keep that money. And donors don't want to keep throwing money at women if they keep losing. That's what this is all about. It's basic arithmetic. Even I can get that.
Kaylee, I saved this one for you because Chris Murphy, the Democrat, did an interview on a New York Times podcast with Ross Douthat, and he was asked a question about transgender men in women's sports. And that's a question that you should be able to answer in the year of our Lord, May of 2025. But his answer was, he says, I don't fear transgender athletes competing in sports.
Good for him.
The question was, well, bro, you really can't empathize with anyone who has concerns. He says, I don't have girls. As if that's the answer.
It's funny you brought that up. I have that transcript here. And then he said, I've talked to a lot of parents of girls in Connecticut who do not think it's fair, who do not think it's unfair. So your answer should not be, I don't have girls. Well, there are a lot of parents who do have girls, myself included.
Right.
And the larger point I think this gets to is Democrats are addicted to bad politics right now. And there was a time where Republicans were the same. You know, in the Obama years, Democrats, their politics won the day and they carried the day for several years. But now they're addicted to this trans ideology, as we see with Chris Murphy, who has this horrible answer, to Jasmine Crockett's identity politics. Like they want the safest white guy. That kind of thinking lost the election. And then they're addicted to storming illegal immigrant facilities like we saw. You know, it used to be AOC languishing by the gate in her white outfit. Now they storm the gate on behalf of criminals. These bad politics are a drug for the left. They need to be in rehab because they're going to continue to lose elections if they continue down the bad politics road.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.